The doors of the neighboring offices opened quietly, letting in and letting out visitors. Moore watched this perpetual motion without much interest, waiting for him to be invited to undergo the procedure. He wasn't worried because he was sure that the medics wouldn't find anything serious. Michael wouldn't have had to waste precious time today if it hadn't been for the insistence of his doctor. Ethan took a long look at the results of his tests, and there was a moment when Moore thought that he knew nothing about medicine. However, all doubts about the competence of the doctor, who was recommended to him by his wife, dissipated. When the doctor, carefully choosing his words, said, "Michael, I do not like your tests, so I appointed you an additional examination." Moore took the doctor's findings lightly at first. "Ethan, you will not deny that in medicine, as in any other field, mistakes are not an exception?" The doctor agreed. "Of course, no one is immune to it, and in my practice, though rarely, I have encountered such things. That is why I advise you to expand the standard scope of examination. Modern medicine has, one might say, unique capabilities that help us save thousands of lives." Ethan was dedicated to his profession and could talk for hours about the achievements of his colleagues. But Moore was in a great hurry and neatly cut short the doctor's fiery speech. "Good, and I agree to further examination." Writing out these directions, Ethan squinted his already small eyes slightly. "Dear Mikhail, this is the age of technological advancement, so we don't use outdated methods. The diagnostic center where you should go works on the basis of electronic coyote, and we will now see on what day you can be recorded." For a few minutes, the doctors worked in front of the monitor screen, and there was no trace of his smile. "I'm deeply disappointed. But for the next 3 months, everything is booked." Moore remarked with obvious skepticism, "You see, doctor, even advanced technology is powerless against bureaucracy." Ethan felt his eyes again. "But any obstacles will help to bypass the old, long-tried ways. And we will now try to arrange an appointment for you outside the queue." The doctor picked up the landline phone and quickly dialed a number he knew. He didn't speak for more than a minute. "Benjamin, I need to check on a patient urgently." "No, I don't want to do it in a month, because the process is progressing." But we can cut in line." "Okay, that's fine." After talking to the unknown interlocutor, Ethan was rubbing his hands together. "The day after tomorrow, you should come to the diagnostic center in the morning and go up to the 3rd floor. You'll find room number 309 and tell them you're from me. Just in case." Michael asked the doctor. "It won't turn out to be a waste of my time." The doctor proudly raised his chin. "That's impossible because Benjamin has been a friend of mine since my student days. We've been helping each other out for over a quarter of a century, ever since we left the university." Anticipating that the doctor was about to launch into a pleasant reminiscence, Michael bowed hastily. "Ethan, thank you so much for your assistance." The doctor escorted him to the door. "Michael, I'll be waiting for you with the MRI results. I really hope everything turns out okay, and give my best to your wife." "I will." Moore was afraid that the chatty doctor would decide to escort him out, as we hurried out of the hospital. At home, he told his wife in detail about the visit, but Kathy did not share his cheerful mood with Michael. "I see no reason for joy. Don't you realize you're very serious?" This remark immediately spoiled the mood, and he lashed out at his wife. "Kathy, I understand everything, but that doesn't mean I have to get hysterical, tear my hair out, and scream that I have cancer." My wife took offense. "Your illness doesn't give you the right to yell at me. You should at least thank me for arranging with the best oncologist in town. Otherwise, you'd spend a year in state clinics where only losers work. Kathy, why put the same oil on everyone? There are good specialists working in ordinary clinics and hospitals." My wife chuckled. "What makes you so sure?" "My mother worked in a rural dispensary. She never divided patients into rich and poor." Forgetting about her husband's illness, Kathy grinned. Aye, I'm paying you back now. How touching you talk about your mother who didn't even deign to show up at our wedding. Well, that's in the past. But I want to tell you, dear husband, you can't compare the city with the country. You understand that conditions are different, and therefore the comparison is not in favor of the village. And in any category. The situation was heating up, and Michael realized that the continuation of the conversation would definitely lead to another quarrel. He really did not want to spoil the already strained relationship with his wife, so he was the first to leave the battlefield and closed himself in his office. Kathy also decided to show her character and did not invite him to dinner. In the morning, he found a note on the kitchen table. I'm going on a business trip for 2 days. I hope you will be able to take care of yourself. This message caused great irritation, and he bought up the scrap of paper and sent it to the trash can. Not a single warm word. However, what can one expect from a woman for whom it is only as much a piece of furniture as this table or cabinet? The relationship with his wife had long ago cracked, but Kathy and Michael continued to pretend that everything was fine. They attended social events together, regularly visited his parents, his wife, but when they returned home, they scattered to different rooms. Even joint dinners, which used to unite them at least a little bit, happened less and less often. At first, Michael was uncomfortable with this state of affairs, but then he got used to it and was even glad that he and Kathy were connected only by their common living space. He lived his life, and we lived ours. Only sometimes, when they, like equally charged particles, suddenly crossed paths in the cramped space of the kitchen. The laws of physics kicked in. Of course, conjugal sex, it didn't come to insults yet, but the reaction of rejection was growing. The intensity of the conflict diminished slightly when Moore began to feel weakness and other unpleasant symptoms on an almost daily basis. For a long time, he hid his condition from his wife. But one day, Kathy herself noticed Michael. I don't like the way you look. He immediately released his protective spikes. I'm not a dollar to please everyone. The wife let this lunge pass by and even tried to smile Michael. But why would you do that? I'm a human being. Look at yourself in the mirror. You've lost a lot of weight and you're very pale. He became uncomfortable for the admitted rudeness, and he muttered under his nose, Sorry, Kathy, I did not mean to offend you. You see, our company is going through some bad times. So I've been very tired these past few months. That's probably why I've been looking worse. But a man doesn't have to be handsome, do you? Kathy agreed with him. After that conversation, their relationship warmed a little and even revived their dinners together. Deep down, Michael hoped that one day there would come a moment when the wall of alienation between them would crumble. His hopes were strengthened after one ridiculous incident that had happened to him a couple of weeks ago. That evening, Kathy came home earlier than usual, much to Moore's surprise. Did your salon go bankrupt, or did you sell it? The woman wagged her eyes playfully. No, my business is fine. It's just that I've had fantastic luck today. Kathy was deliberately stalling, wanting to prolong the pleasure. She had loved to torture him before, in the early years of their marriage. Michael understood his wife's intentions and decided to play along. And in what this luck is expressed, Kathy was already parsing with impatience, and she put out of her purse 2 brightly colored pieces of cardboard. Look what I got. They're tickets to see your favorite band. In his youth, Michael, like many young people, was into heavy rock, and at the top of his list of idols was this band. At that time, it was considered a great happiness to get a cassette tape with a recording of the popular hits of this man. Tiers nokker bacher stier I pfender roen trad soren de seal or I take sirs de gokkens churcher ball? And Townsend, he had all the albums of this group. The old cassettes must still be gathering dust in the attic of their old house, though other people had lived there long ago, because his mother had sold the house after the famous events and moved in with her daughter, that is, Michael's sister. Memories of his youth echoed in his heart, and he clutched the left side of his chest. Kathy noticed the gesture and asked Michael fearfully, "Are you all right? You've gone even paler?" He hurried to reassure his wife. I'm fine. It's just a very unexpected and nice gift. Thank you. I didn't realize this group still existed. It fell apart a few times, and then it was reborn again. That's what the client who planted these tickets explained to me. I remembered that you used to like this band, so I thought I'd surprise you. Kathy sounded sincere, and Moore believed she really wanted to please him. Kathy, did you surprise me? Thank you. The concert of the legendary band was held in the Great Hall of the Philharmonic. The lobby and the check room were filled with pandemonium, and the air was saturated with a tart mixture of perfume scents. Michael sensed a bad tone and jumped out into the street. Kathy ran out after him. "Michael, what's wrong?" He tried to smile. "It's stuffy in there. I'm dizzy. Why don't we go home?" "No, you didn't. You worked so hard to get those tickets. I'll breathe a little fresh air, and the bad air will pass."
They went back into the auditorium and took their seats. But almost as soon as the concert began, Michael began to feel ill again, and they had to go home. That's when Kathy advised her husband, Michael, that you should see a doctor right away. Health jokes often end badly. He tried to get out of it. "Kathy, you know how I feel about going to the hospital. It's nothing serious. I'm just tired. And I haven't been on vacation in a while. Honestly, I don't have the time or inclination to go to the doctor right now." Kathy didn't insist anymore. But the next day, the attack of weakness repeated itself during a work meeting.
It was much worse than the day before, so an ambulance had to be called. He wouldn't tell his wife about the incident at work, but he asked her. "Kathy, did you say something about a doctor you know? I should probably get checked out. It's better to eliminate the risks, if there are any." So Michael Moore fell into the hands of Ethan, who insisted on further examination. It seemed to him that he had been sitting under the door for 2 hours without a sound coming from behind it. A fleeting glance at the chronometer told him that he had been waiting only 10 minutes. At the very moment, Michael wanted to mentally resent the fact that this center was not working well. The door of the office opened silently, and a young girl appeared on the threshold. She was dressed all in white and looked like an angel. Her voice was also angelic. When she said Mr. Moore with a smile. Michael jumped up from the couch. "Yes, it's me. Come in, please." The angelic-looking girl patiently explained to Michael what to do. And he climbed into the sarcophagus-like chamber. It was a little uncomfortable, but the presence of the cute little sister calmed him down. When it was over, the girl said good-naturedly that you should wait a few more minutes for the doctor to write a report. He tuned in for a long wait, but almost immediately the door opened again, and a young doctor with a beard came out. "Are you from him?" Michael nodded, though he didn't immediately realize who he was talking about. "Here's your report. Unfortunately, it's not comforting. The process is aggressive, but urgent surgical intervention may be able to prolong your life." Stick stunned him with the news. The young doctor returned to his workstation. Michael remembered about the fact that there is time only after he was attacked by an old woman in the corridor. "Men, why are you standing there like glued? Keeping people out?" Moore did not remember how he reached the house. His head was filled with anxious thoughts, and he was filled with a sense of hopelessness. Is this really it? After all, I'm only 45, and there was still so much I was going to do in this life. Michael felt like he stumbled in the middle of the course. All right, a trained athlete, there's always a chance to make it to the finish line.
Michael realized that he didn't have that chance, and he didn't want to leave the race early. Michael didn't leave the house for 3 days. He didn't want to raise the alarm early. He didn't want his friends and acquaintances to feel sorry for him, trying not to show their excitement. He called Miles. "William, I've got a bit of a cold. I need to rest." His friend didn't ask any questions. "Michael, don't worry. He'll cover your flanks and get you better." William was his loyal friend and trusted partner. They started a business together, and along the way, they had to drink both sweet honey and bitter wine. But it's a well-known fact that hardship only toughens men. Moore trusted William completely. But now he didn't want to dump his problems on him. When the time came, I'd tell him, "Who knows? What if it's all right?" I don't want to stress a man out for nothing. There was still a fragile hope for a favorable outcome of the disease. Michael was very afraid of shattering it. The man could not and did not want to accept the fact that in the future, nothing good awaits him in principle. What future can one talk about when the meter is lewdly counting down his last days? Kathy returned from her trip in a bad mood, which Michael guessed from her noisy appearance and shouting from the hallway. "Married at home," he called back from the room. "Huh? As you see, with what joy do you pass? You are. Just a couple of days ago, you were complaining about the company's problems. Did it all get resolved? So quickly." Shouting. It was awkward. Michael went out into the hallway. He helped his wife take off her coat and answered her questions. "No, nothing's resolved yet. I just wanted to be alone for a while, to get my thoughts in order." His wife grinned wryly. "Then I apologize for disturbing your privacy. I didn't want to start a fight over nothing." And he asked Kathy with sadness in his voice, "Why are you hanging on to words? You didn't even ask me how my examination went." The woman put her feet into warm slippers, and with the same slightly dismissive intonation asked, well, and how was the examination?" Michael handed his wife the report of the doctor of the diagnostic center. Kathy ran her eyes over the certificate and returned it to her husband. "I still don't understand anything about these terms. Doctors can make such a frightening statement, and then it turns out to be nothing serious." "Kathy, it's more than serious. The doctor said it's a long shot." Michael gave this confession hard, and he hoped that the heart of the woman with whom he lived more than 20 years will respond to his pain. But the limit of fiery mercy very quickly ran out, and she, instead of words of sympathy, decided to philosophize. Of course, it is very unpleasant when a loved one is ill, but all people are mortal. That's how life works, Michael. The only difference is that some go earlier and others later. Grief, but my wife's words seemed sacrilegious. "Thank you, Michael. I called it," soothed Kathy. "I've told you many times that sometimes it's better to say nothing than to speak." That was a fair point Kathy took to heart. "Don't you shut me up. Your illness doesn't give you any right to lord it over me. Don't exaggerate. I was just reminding you of the basic rules of decorum. You must realize that it's inappropriate to say such things in front of a sick person, and I hate that my wife doesn't share my distress." The woman interrupted him again. "I am also uncomfortable with many things, but I tolerate. By the way, with my health too, not all is not well, but I don't shed crocodile in tears." Michael felt an attack of nausea and dizziness, and hurriedly hid in his room, so as not to show her his weakness. Kathy's last words confirmed that she absolutely did not care about her husband. He wanted to run away somewhere far away and forget himself. An inner voice told Michael, "Then sit in the apartment and suffer. Better go to a bar. If you drink a little, you'll get your mind right." But the man had no time to start implementing this plan, because he was reminded of himself by a call to Ethan. The doctor began with a rebuke.
Michael, where have you been? We agreed that you would be at the diagnostic center immediately after the examination. I haven't heard a word from you for 3 days, Moore began to clumsily explain. I got caught up in the moment and forgot I needed to see you. I'll try to make it up to you tomorrow. No, Michael, I want to see you today. Moore was confused. The last thing he wanted to do right now was to be stuck in a clinic where sterile whiteness was the only thing that depressed him. But to refuse a doctor who was genuinely concerned for his life was the height of indecency. So he mumbled uncertainly, "But it's too late." Ethan answered enthusiastically, "A real doctor doesn't look at his watch when his patient's life is at stake. I'm waiting for you." The receiver buzzed, and Moore said irritably, "We'll have to go." Ethan took one look at the results of the examination and put the paper aside. "Unfortunately, my worst suspicions have been confirmed, but you and I have no choice but to accept reality. So we'll fight on." Michael was struck by the fact that the doctor saw his misfortune as his own. This touched Moore to the core, and he asked Ethan in a broken voice, "What is the point of fighting if everything is already clear?" Then came something that Michael did not expect from the little man in the white coat. "Michael, I didn't expect to hear you say that. How can you just give up like that without a fight? What's the use of spending the last of your strength fighting if it's hopeless? Even the most catastrophic situation has a chance to turn things around, huh?" Michael wanted to laugh in the doctor's face, but he restrained himself and asked Ethan politely, "Do you believe what you are saying?" "Ah!" The doctor looked away. For a few minutes, he thought about something intensely, nodded, and pointed his index finger at the table. Then, with a sigh, he said, "Yes, in your case, the chances are negligible. If you translate everything into percentages, then in favor of a positive outcome will be no more than 2%. Of course, this figure is not impressive, but if you are lucky, you could be in this 2%. Therefore, you should not miss this opportunity." Don't give up so quickly. Michael's heart twitched like an electric shock, and he quietly asked, "So you think I should go ahead with the surgery?"
Ethan tapped his finger on the tabletop again. "Absolutely. And the sooner you get into the hands of a good doctor, the better." Moore grinned bitterly. "Where am I going to find such a specialist? You don't have to find anyone. I will deal with this issue myself, because in this situation, every day is precious." Michael wanted to ask the doctor another question, but he looked at him sternly. "If you're wondering why I'm taking such an active part in this, the answer is that I don't work for a paycheck. I work for results. Every life saved is very important to me personally. You won't believe me, but I feel purely professional satisfaction. And that's a lot more satisfying than getting a few pieces of paper in an envelope."
Moore was shocked by the doctor's revelation. "Ethan, you're a unique man, and for some reason, I believe you." Michael returned home with the feeling that this strange man in a white coat, with whom fate had brought him by chance, had just taken him from the edge of the abyss. He did not want to look far ahead, but very much wanted to believe that life is still waiting for something good. The very next day, Michael, having no fear, crossed the threshold of the oncology clinic. Ethan turned out to be a very persistent person, and in less than 24 hours managed to organize a meeting with a famous professor. The medical luminary was no longer young, as evidenced by his gray sideburns. He leafed through Moore's medical history twice and said, "Well, young man, shall we operate on you? Although there are metastases, they are localized. When will you be able to come to our clinic?" The professor looked at Michael with unblinking eyes, and the latter frantically thought about when he would be ready to accept the inevitable. Without waiting for a clear answer, the master of the office said, "I understand your confusion. Perhaps I too would be confused if I were in your shoes. So we will do with you as follows. You will try to settle all your important affairs during this week, and on Monday morning come to us. Moore wasn't prepared for such a rapid turn of events. I thought you had a waiting list for your surgeries, and Ethan said you were impossible to get through. The professor grinned. It's a good thing you got in.
And the waiting list. There is a waiting list, of course, but in our practice we often have a situation where delay is fatal. In the truest sense of the expression. I'm sorry to be blunt, but that's exactly what you have. Moore left the clinic as uncertain as he'd been lately. In the few days that had shattered his life, he had realized many things. There was only one question that had no answer. Why did I have to go through all this? And the longer Michael pondered, the more confused he became in the labyrinths of his own life. Finally, after a short period of thought, he decided to consult William. He has a better head, and he will tell me the right thing to do. Indeed, Miller was the main generator of ideas in the company. His bright head worked around the clock, solving problems of varying levels of complexity. Several times when their brainchild was on the verge of collapse, it was William Miller who found a way of salvation. But in the financial part, he was not well skilled. Therefore, by mutual consent, the friends divided the spheres of influence from day one. And this scheme has never failed. Miller picked up the phone right away. I was going to call you myself. How did you get rid of your cold? Moore answered evasively. Quite. I thought you'd be happy soon. With his appearance, our friendly company misses very much without their commander. Thank you, William, for your kind words. But I've got a lot more than just a cold. We should get together. Talk. I really need your advice, Miller immediately replied to his wife. You know I'm always at your service. Would you like me to come over after work? No, I'd rather be waiting for you in the parking lot. You got a deal? From afar, Michael noticed that his friend was already waiting for him in the service parking lot. When Michael got out of the car, William asked, Where shall we keep the board, right here or find a more suitable place? Moore looked around. No, it's not comfortable to talk here at all. Let's go land at a coffee shop and have a bite to eat. I haven't eaten much today, Miller chuckled. Is that your Kathy boycott? Sort of. She and I haven't been getting along lately. Miller waved his hand. It happens in most families. The time of first crush passes, and there's a long period of stagnation. But I see you're not sharing your marital problems with me. Guess what? The friends settled down at a table at the pizza place and placed their order. Without going into details, Michael told about his sudden illness. Miller listened to him, wiping his eyes. His surprise was so intense that he put the half-eaten pizza back on his plate. Why didn't you say anything? My father-in-law has tons of doctors he knows. You could have solved this problem a long time ago. Moore smiled forcefully. I myself only found out about my illness a few days ago, and I didn't even realize it was so advanced. Although I was offered an operation, but warned that the hopes for a favorable outcome are minimal. The only plus was that I could prolong my life a little. I grasped at straws and agreed. William was overly emotional, and rightly so. You have to take even a 1 in 1,000 chance, and under no circumstances should you get discouraged. Moore took and said, I try to hold on, but different thoughts come into your head, and you chase those thoughts away.
There's no way I'm giving up. I realize that, but I don't know how to prepare myself for the upcoming surgery. I realize that I have only 2 options to submit to fate and make a will, or... Miller furiously waved his hands, which attracted the attention of a young waitress. The girl ran up to their table and obligingly asked them if they wanted to order anything else. William laughed. Thank you. Your pizza is so delicious that I will not refuse another portion. Do you want to repeat? Moore shook his head. No, 1 is enough for me. When the waitress ran to take the order, William threatened his friend, "Don't you dare even think about the will. In fact, you have no one but Kathy to pass on your property to." No, you see, you're wrong. I have a sister, and my mother is still in good health. They don't want to do anything with me, though. They can't forgive me for one mistake. Miller sighed. What's a big mistake? Well, it's which way you look at it. I told you about it. But I guess you forgot. Then remind me what you did when you were an immature young man. For the first time in days, Michael laughed heartily. Unfortunately, I was a mature man when I ran away from my young wife the day after the wedding. It's just that I suddenly had an epiphany and realized I wasn't ready to live the rest of my life with that woman. Miller rolled her eyes. Wow! Moore clapped his friend on the shoulder. Vitya, I told you about my failed marriage. In general, I never complained about my memory, but I don't remember such a story. Maybe you've shared your most intimate things with me? I wasn't exactly in the right state of mind. That's possible. But to be honest, I don't remember. William picked up a glass of juice. Then, we're tied. Which I'll gladly drink to. Miller wiped his ribs with a napkin and said seriously to his wife, In a case as complicated as yours, it's hard to give advice. But you know I have a great imagination, and I imagined myself in your shoes for a moment. Michael held his breath. What would you do? Miller waved his hand again expressively. I'd go back to my roots. I don't quite understand you. Let me explain. Old people believe that everything in life is connected. If a person has committed some dishonorable deed, karma is bound to come. I think there's a certain sense in this theory. By the way, life itself proves it. Probably this is the reason why in difficult moments, people try to purify their souls. For this purpose, some people go to the temple and pray, and others try to return to their roots. Hey, Sorot! As Michael was experiencing great excitement, and whichever option I advised them, I'd use both. But you could start with the second one. Who knows, maybe you'll get it right and fate will take pity on you. At least you can try. And then it's up to you. They walked back to the parking lot together. Saying goodbye, William encouraged his comrade Michael to hang in there. Know that I'm with you? Thank you, friend. Michael got into the car, but did not turn on the ignition. After his conversation with Michael, his thoughts were organized in a chain. There was no more confusion and fear, because he now knew what he should do. Michael was afraid that on the road he might get sick again, so he decided to go to his native land by train. Although the journey was not long, the man bought a ticket for a compartment car. As soon as he took his seat, all anxieties and worries receded. The train moved smoothly forward, and Michael looked out of the car window at the painfully familiar scenery. He remembered the distant but not forgotten past. More. We lived in a small town, but when times got tough, the family moved to the country. Christina, Michael's mother, convinced her husband that it was easier to survive in the countryside. And my parents' house has been empty for years. Let's live like other people do. Let's plant potatoes and carrots. It will be more economical for our wallet. Stephen first agreed with his wife, but there was no work for him in the village. So the head of the family had to make an important decision. I'll have to go back to the city. At least they're building something there. I will work on a rotational basis, 2 weeks at the construction site, a week at home. Since her salary as a nurse in a rural outpatient clinic was not enough even for the most basic necessities. The woman agreed, although all the hardships of village life fell on Christina's shoulders. She did not complain about life because her husband earned good money, and they even made major repairs in the house. Stephen dreamed of eventually buying a car, then Christina. Now you can buy a foreign car inexpensively. You understand that in the country seed, without your own transport, there is no need to ask someone if you need to bounce to the district or regional center. Christina supported her husband in this. Yes, it was much easier with a car. And it would be possible to take something to the market, to the city, to sell something. In the hope of increasing his income, Stephen worked almost without rest. The man did not spare himself, trying to provide for his family. But misfortune broke into a measured, settled life. Christina was widowed when she was only 30 years old. Her husband and the main breadwinner of the family died in an accident at work. A construction cradle broke off and collapsed from the 8th floor. Stephen's partner was seriously injured but survived, while Moore could not be saved by medics, although they tried to pull the man from the clutches of death. After her husband's funeral, the unfortunate widow sought justice. She wanted those responsible for her spouse's death to be punished. But in those troubled times, this was an almost impossible task. So an official advised the woman, "You can't get your husband back, but you can hurt yourself by your persistence. You're being offered monetary compensation. Take it, because you and your 2 children can't survive." Christina obeyed the official and stopped going to the offices. However, the construction organization, where Stephen worked, paid the widow only half of the promised amount. Michael well remembered his mother's heartfelt wish to someone unknown. "May this money get down your throat." He was only 5 years old and did not understand the meaning of this common expression. Also, he turned to his older sister for clarification. Betty had always treated her little brother with emphasized arrogance, but she liked to teach him a lesson. This time, too, she decided not to miss the opportunity to teach him a lesson. "Michael, you're still small and stupid, so you're a duck." Not until the 5th day. Mama says that because she was cheated. They promised to give her a lot of money for Daddy, but they gave her a pittance. Little Michael was impressed by his sister's explanation, and Betty, after a short pause, imitating her mother, added with a sigh, "How will we live without Daddy now?" It was at that moment that Michael realized that he was now responsible for his mother and sister. After all, his father often told him, "Jekka, a real man, should take care of their women." The 5-year-old decided to show his character immediately. The next morning, he got up early and went to the vegetable garden to walk the beds.
When the mother woke up and did not find her son in the crib, she was not on a joke, frightened. But looking out the window, pleasurably said, "Ah, that's where our little man has gone." He decided to help his mom, just like his father.
Michael quickly learned the science of village life. He learned to stove the stove and chop wood, and in the hot season of sowing and harvesting, he confidently wielded a shovel. In his free time, the boy did not idle either. He took his father's fishing rods and went to the river, from where he always returned with a catch. It is noteworthy that housework did not interfere with studies, and Michael Moore in the future planned to enter the institute. Christina could not be pleased with her son. At any opportunity, she in conversation with neighbors stood up, "Hey, my Michael!" and then followed the description of her son's next feat. Betty did not like her mother's praise of her younger brother, and she often remarked, not without mockery, "Mom, now you are praising Michael in every possible way, and for nothing. Can't you see his nose cocking up, walking from the ground underfoot?" He doesn't. Believe me. The time will come and he'll set you up like that. Christina did not like such conversations and immediately stopped them. "You better shut up, soothsayer, you fucking egg. It's just plain jealousy talking in you. But it's stupid to be jealous of my own brother, because I love you both equally." Michael began to realize his older sister's shenanigans when he turned 15. By then, Betty had already made it to the city and jumped out of town to get married. His sister was expecting her firstborn and was working hard to get his mother to come to her house. It won't be long before I need your help. I don't know how I'm going to manage on my own. I'm moving to the city. There's nothing for you to rot in the village. This proposal surprised Christina Simonov. What makes you think I'm in favor of it? I like country life. I'm already used to it. If I move to you, who will I leave my house and household to? Betty didn't hesitate to answer. Michael is friendly. He'll be fine. Christina was amazed. Betty, are you out of your mind? Are you suggesting that I should shoulder everything? He's just a kid. He needs to learn. Here. His mother's soft refusal made Betty even angrier. Mama, you're all about your Michael. He's like a light in a window to you. And I asked you for help for the only time in my life, and you turned me down. Christina didn't choose her words either. Betty, you're selfish and you don't see anyone but yourself. First of all, I didn't refuse to help you, and I will help you as much as possible. But I'm not going to give up my home and my job. Betty was very offended at her mother and did not call for a long time. However, after Christopher was born, relations between them improved. On weekends, the mother went to her sister in the city, instructing her son to his wife, "You will manage here alone, and I will go to help your sister." From the guests, Christina returned tired but satisfied. She could talk for hours about the progress of little Christopher. Michael also visited his sister several times. But it wasn't his nephew's skills he admired. It was his sister's well-fed life. Betty, you've settled down nicely. You've got an apartment, a lot of fancy clothes, and your husband drives you around in a car. His older sister used to tell him what to do when he was a kid. Just a brother. I chose the right husband. He's very promising, and he's about to be transferred to work in the capital. Michael then a little cut the word combination of the right husband, but he did not emphasize this stage to his sister. And soon, this little oversight of his sister was forgotten. Only a few years later, he remembered this expression when he started dating Adriana. Unlike most of his classmates, Michael Moore did not burden himself with unnecessary connections. He valued time, and he had every day scheduled to the minute. Of course, the girls threw in his direction fiery glances. Michael lavished them with compliments. But the guys didn't have a steady girlfriend. Christina even got worried. Michael, are you going to live your life as a monk? You have so many girls around you, and you don't pay any attention to them. Life's short. You'll be gone before you know it. If you keep picking brides, you'll end up dead. Have you been? Michael only added to your mother's fears. You said yourself that everything has its time. Believe me, the hour will come when I meet the one girl I'll be ready to spend the rest of my life with. In the meantime, I need to serve in the army and get a normal profession. Christina only shook her head. Son, it is impossible to plan your whole life, the son answered optimistically. Any plan can be adjusted. The mother did not argue with him, but thought to herself, wait until the rooster bites you, then you'll talk differently. But time passed, and the son's plans remained unchanged. After serving in the army, he grew up and caused a real stir among the neighborhood girls. Christina again started a conversation on a hot topic. However, knowing her son's character, she started from afar, the son of a farmer who had bought the land of a former collective farm and was calling for various specialists to work for him. You should go to him, find out what's going on. The men say that he pays a decent wage. If everything goes well, you will build your own house and marry a nice girl. Michael understood perfectly well where his mother was going. He himself has not yet had time to decide how to live in the civilian life, and cheerfully answered his mother that he should try. Tomorrow I'll go to your farmer. Interested in work, enterprising entrepreneur settled in a neighboring village. Mikhail talked to him, but the farmer did not offer him anything worthwhile. A little disappointed, he walked home. He had almost reached the outskirts of the neighboring village. When Michael Moore called out to him, a woman's voice sounded familiar to him, and he strained his memory. The answer was given almost instantly. Michael shouted joyfully to Smolino. What a surprise! Adriana was a year younger than him, and during their school years, they often crossed paths at the disco and the village club. A few times, Michael even saw the girl off, but nothing serious happened between them. The meeting on the outskirts of the village was unexpected for both of them. The girl looked at him and smiled silently. Michael realized that he had to break this ridiculous silence. Adriana was living somewhere now. The girl was happy. I studied to be a hairdresser, and now I'm back. I'm going to do some beauty work in my home village. Where have you been? Michael proudly replied, I was doing my duty to the fatherland. Adriana looked at him with respect. I see. You were in the army. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. I went to see your famous farmer, but he didn't offer me anything worthwhile. I'll probably go to the city. It's easier to work there, the salary is higher, and frankly, it's more fun to live there. The girl said yes. Suddenly, she suggested it. In your village, the club has long since closed, but in our village, it's still working. There's a new manager there now. You must know her. She runs discos every other day and plays the DJ herself. Come, we'll have fun together. Adriana looked at him hopefully, and he didn't want to disappoint this sweet girl. Okay, I'll be sure to jump up on the walls. You just tell me, when is the next disco race? The girl shamefully flashed her eyes tonight. Michael kept his promise and went to the neighboring village in the evening. After the disco, he and Adriana walked until dawn, talking about life. Michael returned home in an elevated mood, which did not escape his mother's gaze. Michael, where have you been all night? He kissed his mother. Mom, I think I met the one and only girl. I'm not exactly sure yet. Adriana's not like the others. She's very smart and kind. Christina breathed a sigh of relief. Son, I'm so happy for you. Their relationship with Adriana developed gradually, without too much passion. When Michael went to the city to find a decent job, they called each other almost every day. Once a month, the young man came home, and then the couple secluded in his room. Christina tried not to interfere with the lovers, hoping that their meetings would grow into something more. But time passed, and nothing changed. Then the mother decided to have a new conversation with her son. It's time to make up your mind how much you will be your father's fiancé. Christina was used to her son always making jokes, but this time he was almost rude to her. Mom, I'll figure out when I'm getting married. I can't have a family now. I don't have a proper job or a place to live. Michael, so the whole house is at your disposal, and I will have more fun with you. The son said nothing to this proposal and returned to the city. In the fall, he enrolled in the economics department of the university. It was not easy for him to combine work and distance learning, so trips home had to be reduced. Adriana longed for loneliness and reminded him of himself with frequent calls to his wife. When you come, it is not so bad without you. Although he no longer felt any former affection for this lovely girl, the sense of responsibility for her fate remained on Stettin. We'll just have to be patient. Time flies by. In 2 years' time, I'll have a diploma, and I'll be able to start a serious business. He shared with his fiancée his main plan to become the founder of a logistics company. She sent him admiring sighs through the distance. It is not known how long such an incomprehensible relationship would have lasted had the young people not taken their relationship to the next level on one of their visits. Their intimacy was like the timid flame of a candle, but Michael showed himself as a decent man and immediately proposed to the girl. At this stage, he had to make some changes in his life plan, about which he immediately informed his future wife.
Adriana, you and I are getting married, but for now we'll have to live apart for a while. You realize I can't quit my studies. Adriana was very supportive. Michael, of course you have to study, I'll wait. We'll be together later anyway. A month later, they had a wedding that was celebrated by the whole village. The young people were congratulated and given expensive gifts. Even Betty's sister couldn't resist and prepared a touching speech. Michael, I am sure that you will become for Adriana the wall that every woman dreams of. But you are dependable and will always stand up for your family. Happiness to you for many years to come. Bitter. Michael Hops sang with wishes and wine. He hadn't expected the hangover to be so quick and heavy. He woke up in the early morning when dawn was just dawning on the horizon. His head split open from drinking the night before, and he tiptoed into the kitchen, where he had volleyed 2 glasses of cold water. His brains slowly began to return to normal. Michael returned to the bedroom where his young wife was sleeping serenely. He looked at Adriana and had absolutely no feelings. A scream almost burst out of his chest. God, what have I done? It's not like I don't love her. This revelation stunned him. He imagined that he would have to pretend to love Adriana every day and spend every night in the same bed with her. The pictures his imagination painted were depressing. Michael staggered toward the door, whispering silently, "Not again, I'm not ready for this life." He dressed quickly and grabbed a travel bag that stood in the corner. Michael realized that his escape would look like a betrayal and decided to explain everything in a note. Adriana, I'm sorry, but I realize that you and I made a mistake. But there's no love between us. Just simple affection. Don't resent me, and if you can, forgive me. He slipped out of the door, trying not to make any noise. It took him about 10 minutes to get to the station and catch the first train. Michael knew that he would get a barrage of phone calls, so he thoughtfully turned off his cell phone. But he did not manage to avoid the consequences of his ugly deed. The very next day, his mother and sister arrived. Christina was sobbing. Betty covered his head in shame. I always had a feeling you'd pull off something extravagant one day. But Mom didn't believe me. How could you think of eloping the second day after the wedding? Do you realize the position you've put your mother and me in? And Adriana, did you even think about her? Michael mumbled sluggishly. I realized I didn't love Adriana. Why deceive her and myself? Betty shrieked. You should have thought before you've embarrassed everyone and me and Mom and poor Adriana. Come back and make things right. Or else. Michael's heart boiled with a wave of indignation. Otherwise what? Stop threatening me. I'm not a boy for a long time now. Christina wiped her tears and said firmly, since you are so independent, live alone. Know that from this day forward, you have no sister or mother. It was harsh and even cruel, but Michael wasn't going to back down. It's okay, I'll live alone. They won't be lost without you. The door to the past had slammed shut, but Michael never regretted it. Soon he met Kathy and fell head over heels in love with this bright, confident girl. It was then that he remembered his sister's words and thought, Kathy, the right wife, I will be comfortable with her. And he was not mistaken in his predictions. The girl's parents took him in like family. Kathy John's father worked in the city administration. When he learned of his future son-in-law's plans, he praised him. Well done, Michael. You've got a business sense. I will definitely help you with the registration of your enterprise. John really helped a lot, and William and I. He recommended an experienced lawyer who prepared all the necessary documents. The paperwork took only 2 months to complete, and the new businessmen loudly celebrated the opening of their enterprise. And shortly after this momentous event, Michael married Kathy.
with the dissolution of the previous failed marriage, did not have any problems. And he did not even have to personally meet Adriana. Through acquaintances, he learned that she seemed to have left the village. He also learned that his sister's husband had been transferred to work in the capital, and Betty took her mother with her. For some time, especially at night, Michael was tormented by remorse. The new life swirled him in its vortex, and he tried to forget about everything that connected him with the past. Moore believed that he had succeeded as a man and as a successful businessman. The only thing that marred his life was the lack of children. In the first year after the wedding, Kathy became pregnant, and he was looking forward to having his firstborn. But his wife was unable to carry the baby. Only later, years later, Kathy confessed to her husband. To his wife, "I must confess to you, I can't carry it anymore." He wondered, "And what have you sinned?" "And before me? If you say you have a lover, I won't believe you." The woman glittered angrily. "And I can see that you don't care about anything but your company." He asked, "Please don't start. Better tell me what you see yourself in." And she confessed, "I didn't have a miscarriage. I decided to get rid of the pregnancy. I thought it was too soon for us to have kids. But it turned out to be our only chance. If we'd had kids, maybe we wouldn't be fighting." This confession came shortly before Moore learned of his terminal illness. But only now, on the train, he realized that his illness and the absence of children in the family, all this is payback for his past deed. For 20 years, Michael Moore had not been to his home village. His heart fluttered in anticipation of a reunion with the past he had once so easily abandoned. He walked slowly down the main street of the village, mentally noting 2 decades had passed, but nothing had changed. On the way, he met an elderly woman. Here, she scrutinized his face for a long time and then joyfully exclaimed, "No way!" Michael was amazed, but answered calmly, "He is the same. I don't recognize you." The woman with the same intonation said, "And I do not recognize myself when I look in the mirror in the morning." "Auntie, your neighbor." "She's an auntie." "No, you haven't changed much. You've only gotten smaller." The woman laughed. "Stop! The pity of old age is getting lower. I didn't recognize you at first either. You've become so important. Why are you here? You want to check the house?" Michael wondered if Mom hadn't sold it. Auntie waved her hands. "They didn't sell the house." "Betty, did your sister come by?" "I think she found a buyer at first, but then the deal fell through. For what reason, I don't know." "But your house is still standing, homeless." "Betty comes twice a year?" In the spring and fall, people told her to at least rent it out to cottagers." She turns up her nose, says, "I don't need anyone's advice." She's sharp. "Michael, I'm sorry. Who?" "I'm talking about your sister Betty. She's gotten a little too businesslike. Of course she is. Her husband's practically a minister now. And a son who's a big shot." "Bern," interrupted the chatty woman, "Betty came with Christopher. And Mom. She's here all the time." The neighbor shook her head. "No, Autonica never came. She'd never been here since she left." Michael thanked his aunt and was about to go on his way, but the old woman grabbed him by the arm. "Where are you going?" "I want to see the house." "Oh, you made a lot of noise in the village. You'd have to be such a freak to run away the second day after your wedding. Why don't you ask about Adriana, your abandoned wife?" Michael felt his ears burning. What should I know about her? We broke up, or she has her own life, and I have mine. The aunt crossed herself hastily. "Oh, Holy Mother of God! Why does he hesitate with his tongue? What life has she got, if she died long ago?" "How long ago?" "It's been 10 years since your Adriana was buried. She was diagnosed with cancer. She suffered a long time. Something painfully clicked in Michael's head. And he thought, who's the first person you should apologize to? It's because of you that poor Adriana got sick and died early. His aunt noticed his confusion. Why are you frozen? If you want to visit, you can find her grave right away. Her sister did her best. She made a beautiful monument to her in the form of a blossoming flower. You can see it from afar. Michael didn't listen to the neighbor anymore. He was walking towards the house where his best years had passed. For a while, the neighbor was still following him. Michael, why did you run away so fast? I didn't tell you everything. But he didn't stop because he didn't want to waste time with idle talk. He thought about karma again, and a chill ran down his spine. Adriana had cancer, too. But why should she? She was a perfectly innocent creature. The yard was a mess. The vegetable garden, where once there had been rows and rows of beds, was now a cool, weedy thicket. Michael opened the gate with difficulty and, drowning in the grass, made his way to the shriveled porch. He found in one place the right key, and it with great difficulty opened the door. It smelled of rotten dampness and pain. Again it echoed under his heart. How desolate the place is. No one wants this old house, and no one needs it either. Moore was angry with himself and muttered, "What did you come here for? To shed tears? Too late. Nobody's gonna feel sorry for you." And there's no one to feel sorry for you. He walked slowly through the rooms and left the house. I'm going to the cemetery. I'll be back. At Adriana's grave. Just as the neighbor had said, he saw from afar a monument that resembled a flower Michael. He took a step closer, but suddenly, as if out of thin air, a girl in a wedding dress appeared near the place he was hurrying to. The man thought that he imagined it and shook his head violently, making everything swim before his eyes. The girl stood with her back to him and whispered quietly. It was quite chilly, and Mugea was surprised that the girl was in such an inappropriate outfit for a mournful place. And he involuntarily burst out. You might freeze. It's quite cold in the fall courtyard. The girl turned around sharply. Michael staggered with horror, because in front of him stood Adriana. He shouted, "This can't be." The girl staggered, frightened, and wanted to run away, but the edge of her wedding dress caught on the fence. She, too, froze with wide-open eyes that were still glistening with tears. Michael was the first to come to his senses and asked the stranger, "Who are you?" The girl rushed over with an obvious challenge. "That's right. That's the kind of question I want to ask you. Who are you and what are you doing on my mom's grave?" Mugea blurted out. "Adriana's daughter." "Yes. Why are you so surprised? You look just like your mom, like two peas in a pod." More calmly now, the girl asked, "Did you know my mom?" He answered evasively, "Yes. And what's your name?" "Lisa." "Lisa." The girl grinned bitterly. "You're probably wondering why I'm in such an inappropriate place in this outfit." Moore agreed. "I confess it is an unusual sight." The girl opened a small wicket and sat down on a bench. She corrected the bouquet of fresh flowers and sadly mumbled, "I came running here to complain to my mother. My fiancé dumped me today. We were supposed to get married at 12 Gurigs, and he didn't show up because he got cold feet. He told me through his buddy that he changed his mind about getting married. You see, yesterday he was thinking about it, and today he changed his mind. How am I supposed to go home and explain everything to the guests?" The girl burst into tears again, turning to her dead mother. "Mommy, why am I so unhappy? Where can I go after such a disgrace?" Moore blurted it out without thinking. "Lisa, but you have a father. He will definitely help you." Through the sobs, a Vanya girl directly led away. "I have no father. My mom only told me that he ran away the second day after the wedding." Mikhail felt a chill run down his back again. Lisa didn't notice his changed expression. She continued to complain about life. "It's some kind of evil fate, and I'm repeating, against my will, my mother's fate. I will never marry again for anything. Moore was stunned by the newly discovered circumstances. If for the first time in his life, he did not know what he should do in so unusual a situation, to go away and leave the girl alone with her grief. He could not, nor could he at once, recognize that his own daughter was before him. For a few minutes, the man was at a loss, not knowing what to do next. The sobbing stopped. Lisa looked at him. I almost told you everything about me, and you are silent. Tell me, who are you and why are you here? Michael was not yet ready for a confession, but he broke out against his will. Lisa is me, the scoundrel who ran away from your mom. I didn't know she was dead,
And I didn't know anything about you either. The girl jumped up. What a meeting! You'd better leave. Don't mar this place with your presence either. Michael begged Lisa. Don't be so hasty. I didn't come here for nothing.
I want to apologize to Adriana for ruining her life. I paid for my sin very dearly. I don't have much time left to live. That's why I came here. Lisa sat down on the bench again, and her voice became noticeably warmer. Are you sick? Michael grinned bitterly. Yes, they found a tumor in my head. It's getting bigger, and the doctors say my case is almost hopeless. If they say that, then there's a small chance. I'm scheduled for surgery in 3 days. I want to believe in the best, but I can't. Lisa thought for a while and then sadly said, I cannot get used to the idea that you are my father. Everything happens so suddenly, huh? It happens only in movies or books. But if my mother were alive, she would advise you not to give up because she loved you until her death and never said a bad word about you. Michael's up. Lisa, can I see you again? Will you let me help you? The girl grinned. Decided to pay for past sins. No, girl, I want to be forgiven. You know, when you have everything measured in your life, you do not think that there will come a moment when you have to collect stones. That is, to answer for what you have done in the past. My time has come, and that's why I'm here. Michael walked slowly towards the road. He didn't turn around once, but he felt that Lisa was watching him with a glance. The man had gone a decent distance when he heard the clatter of heels behind him. Wait, I want to ask you something. Moore stopped. Lisa ran up and, without catching her breath, asked, If we've already met, can I visit you in the hospital? Michael did not expect such a question and almost cried. Thank you, my daughter. I'll be very glad. You know, I haven't had time to get used to the fact that I have a daughter now. Lisa laughed. It seems pretty wild to me that I have a father now. Michael snapped out of oblivion and was immediately pierced by an intense pain. The man tried to turn around because his left side ached. Immediately, there was a loud shout, Moore, you can't move. Stay quiet and don't talk. You can only make signs with your eyes. The voice came through through the floor of the bathroom, moving closer and farther away. Michael covered his eyes, but the nurse's voice did not let him relax. Professor, has your special patient recovered from the anesthesia? I think he's fine. At least he understands me very well. We'll check that now. Michael immediately recognized the professor's voice, and it made him feel better. He opened his eyes again and saw directly above him a face framed with gray sideburns. Well, my dove, I want to tell you. Do as your head feel lighter. Michael covered his eyes in agreement, which delighted the professor. No important centers are affected. The patient is fully functional. Galarka is a success! A woman's voice with hidden irony said, Who would doubt it? You're our chief rescuer. And you, Mr. Moore, very lucky that you got to Professor Mironov. Michael lowered his eyelids again. He heard how, leaving the animation ward, the professor instructed the nurse on duty. If his relatives or wife came to see him, let them pass for 5 minutes, positive emotions in such cases are very useful, they work better than the most advanced drugs. The nurse said with obvious displeasure. There's a whole delegation waiting in the lobby, since early morning. The professor grinned. Delegations we don't need here. They violate the epidemic regime. But we can let one person in as an exception. Then let the daughter go through. She's been tearing up for a long time, and she's all tearful. Mugea felt her heart sinking with excitement. Emotions were so strong that the man with great difficulty pronounced, Lisa. The nurse was surprised. Yes, you, Moore, a real hero. You're on the mend by leaps and bounds. If you keep this up, you'll be dancing tomorrow. The nurse spoke without anger, and her words reassured the patient. Michael did not immediately recognize Lisa in her casual clothes. He stared at her for so long that tears came to his eyes from tension or excessive feeling. His daughter stroked his arm and told him not to cry. All the bad things are over now. I'll come to see you every day, and Grandma and Aunt Betty too. He whispered, They're here. Lisa asked silence. You can't talk? I called them and they came right over. They didn't even know you were sick, and they scolded you for not telling them. Michael recovered quickly and was soon moved to a regular ward. He spent almost 2 weeks in the hospital, but during these days, his wife never visited him. Moore was discharged on Friday. He asked his daughter in advance to meet him. Lisa honored his request. Mikhail opened the apartment door with his K. Kathy did not expect his appearance and froze at the threshold. Mikhail, the man, answered her rather rudely. You already did not expect to see me alive? But as you can see, I'm on my feet. Kathy looked at his companion. Michael, I'm honestly happy for you, but tell me, who is this girl? Michael grinned. She's my only daughter and legal heir. And from this day forward, she will live in this apartment. Kathy stepped back timidly. Michael, what about me? I think you'd better look for another place to live, because we can't live together anymore. Moore didn't explain why, but Kathy understood.